Canadians love a bargain, and no retailer does bargains bigger than the king of bulk itself, Costco. Business is booming, and generic prescription drugs are no exception. But do deals at the Costco pharmacy counter have a shadier side? Secret audio tapes heard for the first time revealed demands for illegal payments.
He's basically saying, I want a minimum of 60% rebate on all your sales.
Well, you can call it a rebate. I prefer to call it a kickback.
A generic drug insider goes public about his fight with the retail giant.
Well, I'm telling you, an American corporation is taking millions of dollars out of the healthcare system, and you're not reacting. So I was flabbergasted, to be honest with you.
And outrage from those hit hardest by the system.
I call it greed. And disgusting greed. Like, that's obscene.
On this edition of The Fifth Estate, we investigate hidden kickbacks in the generic drug industry. Are you getting ripped off? If you want to understand the relationship between Canadian consumers and Costco, just follow the money. Shoppers flock there looking for the best deals on everything from food to fashion to pharmaceuticals. And with rock-bottom dispensing fees, it's no wonder Costco's pharmacies are attracting the consumer crowd. But hidden drug industry practices have been padding the price of generic drugs for years, until the truth started slowly seeping out. It all started with Tony Gagliese. For years, he sold generic drugs for a company called Ranbaxy.
One thing generics do is sell to everyone. But Ranbaxy said, no, we'll sell to people who are good people that we have good relationships with only. And that's what we did.
One of Gagliese's biggest customers was Costco, a multi-million-dollar-a-year relationship, he said, that was built on trust. That changed when Costco put new buyers in charge of their drug business.
Suddenly, July 18th, my daughter's birthday, 2013, I get a one-line email. And from now on, Joseph Hanna and Lawrence Varga are taking over.
The new Costco buyers had new rules. If Gagliese wanted to keep his product in their stores in Ontario, he had to pay Costco for the privilege. Costco said it was for advertising and clinic fees they genuinely believed were legal. Gagliese didn't see it that way, so he decided to secretly tape his phone conversations. The voice you'll hear belongs to Joseph Hanna, Costco's National Director of Drug Purchasing.
My analysis essentially shows that your support is approximately, and I might be off by a couple percent, or I might be off by a lot more if you tell me differently, around 46-ish%.
Hanna is telling Gagliese his support, meaning his payments to Costco to carry his product, aren't enough.
Here's sort of what I'm going to kind of tell you. If you want to compete, it is going to have to be sort of, 60 plus.
He's basically saying, I want a minimum of 60% rebate on all your sales.
And what's wrong with that?
It's against the law in Ontario.
Ontario made these so-called rebates illegal in 2013 in an effort to drive down the overall price of generic drugs. If pharmacy chains stopped demanding rebates, the province argued, then the generic drug companies could afford to lower the price of their drugs for Canadians. Sure, generic drug companies have manufacturing costs and pharmacies have operating costs, but it seems when it comes to the price of pills, there's a whole lot of fat in the middle. How much fat? Well, Gagliese says the new buyers wanted Ranbaxy to pay Costco $3.6 million in rebates and advertising fees, or their drugs could be pulled from Costco's pharmacies.
No one has the money. You're asking for money. We're now October. You're asking me for 6 months worth of money, which I don't have.
Became a lawyer. I always cared about access to medicine.
Amir Adaran is a professor in the faculties of law and medicine at the University of Ottawa.
What's wrong with a rebate?
Well, you can call it a rebate. I prefer to call it a kickback.
He says rebates are the drug industry's dirty little secret.
Canada pays more for generic drugs than just about any other place in the world. Canadians are really seriously gouged on the price of generic drugs. Billions of dollars a year wasted that doesn't need to be.
Why is that?
That's largely because in the price of a drug in Canada, there's not just the drug. There is a portion of the price that goes to the pharmacy in the form of a rebate or kickback.
And those high prices are crippling for people like Jim Poot. Last year, the Fifth Estate interviewed him about his struggle to pay for drugs after he was diagnosed with multiple brain tumors.
Jim, when I look down here, this looks like a forest of pills to me. Walk me through the forest.
This little bottle is about $75. That runs roughly $200. This one here is the most expensive one on the table, somewhere in the $700 range.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wildly expensive.
And how important are these to you?
Being able to function manageably as compared to being upstairs in bed and not being able to function at all. There's that much of a difference.
So without these, you and I aren't having this conversation right now.
No, I wouldn't be participating in this interview at all. I'd be upstairs trying to figure out how to get through the next few hours. So it's life-altering.
The serious numbers that could be going into.
After paying Costco $1.2 million in rebates and fees across the country, Gagliese urged Ranbaxy to stop the payments. Then, in an attempt to save the business relationship with Costco, Gagliese went straight to the top.
So, did you flag Costco? Did you bring it to Costco's attention?
Every year, the CEO of Costco Worldwide would send all suppliers an email. He said, if you ever run across any of my employees asking for anything under the table, anything unethical, not following the law, please get in touch with me. And I remembered that email. So I thought, I'm going to write him an email.
Gagliese figured he had nothing to lose. Costco's CEO, Craig Jelinek, is known for being approachable, down to earth. He was voted America's most loved CEO in 2017. So who did Jelinek put on the case? The very same guy who was demanding the payments, Lawrence Varga, Costco's Director of Operations in Canada.
Well, the thing that was really concerned me is that they put Lawrence Varga in charge of the investigation. So the person I'm claiming to be breaking the law is now investigating it. And I have emails to prove that.
As you can see from this email, Costco wanted Varga to talk to the drug company Ranbaxy to discuss Tony's serious allegations. In a statement to CBC, Costco's top Canadian executive, André Brien, said they needed to involve Varga so he could provide his perspective. Though Gagliese sees it differently.
So I thought, you know what, this is getting out of hand. And that's when I went to the college.
And that's when your journey really started to accelerate.
Yeah, absolutely, in August of 2015. So that's when I decided to write.
Gagliese began to lose faith in Costco's internal investigation, so he took his complaint to the next level.
Tony, in your journey, you started Costco. You ended up here at the Ontario College of Pharmacists. Why here? Why'd you come to them?
Well, the Ontario College of Pharmacists is the regulatory body for pharmacists. So if there's an issue within pharmacy and the professionalism of pharmacy, I thought I should come and talk to them and let them know what was going on.
After a year-long investigation, Costco's two executives were now facing 4 disciplinary charges from the college. In her statement to the CBC, Briand said it voluntarily stopped asking suppliers in Ontario for any payments pending clarification from the province. Costco's initial defense was they didn't know these payments for advertising and marketing were considered illegal. But remember, Gagliese had that tape.
So I take the $6 million and I multiply that by 0.6. As a minimum, I'd like to see somewhere around 3.6 million of support. That's a minimum. Okay. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to win molecules or anything, but it probably means that you're not going to lose the molecules that you have.
In January, Gagliese was asked to testify as a witness at the college's disciplinary hearing.
I was prepped the week prior, went in that morning, and the college lawyer asked me for a brief 2 seconds meeting, went into an office, and he said, they've pleaded guilty and we're not going to have the case. I said, okay. He goes, here's the bad news. I said, okay, what's the bad news? He said, we're only going to charge them with unprofessional conduct. I said, what's the fine? He said, $20,000 per person and $30,000 for costs. I said, at least they're going to suspend their license? No. At least they're going to remove their accreditation for the pharmacies? No. I said, that's weak. That's a bogus agreement.
The college says it did its job. By law, it can only impose fines of up to $35,000. But what about the $1.2 million in payments Ranbaxy made to Costco before Gagliese blew the whistle on them? Well, Costco kept that money.
As my son said, so I pay a $20,000 fine for stealing $1.2 million. Where do I sign up?
I think the College of Pharmacists of Ontario is an unreliable regulator in a largely corrupt industry. I did a lot of research on that.
The University of Ottawa's Amir Adaran.
They have not taken this close to seriously enough. If Costco has made $1.2 million unlawfully, fining them $20,000, is that the best the College of Pharmacists can do? It's pathetic.
So Tony didn't stop there. As we'll show you, he took his tapes to the Ontario government, pushing for stiffer penalties for Costco.
Costco has been caught with its hand in the till, clearly. Now the big question is, what will the province do about it?
Tony Gagliese, generic drug salesman turned whistleblower, was leading a one-man stand against retail Goliath Costco. All because he says Costco's executives asked him for illegal payments to stock the drugs he sold to their pharmacies. He secretly taped a phone conversation with a Costco executive. This is what being strong-armed sounds like.
Assuming nothing changes and so on, and of course assuming current pricing and blah blah blah. Yeah. Let's say it's $6 million. Okay. This is what I would like to see, and this is a minimum to ensure that, well, not ensure, but a minimum to greatly reduce the likelihood of somebody eating your business.
He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about the suppliers. He just wants what's best for him, and he enriches the corporation.
So if you don't pay him, someone else will.
Someone else will pay him.
In its defense, Costco says the rules around the ad fees were not crystal clear, adding Gagliese's recordings were incomplete and not an accurate reflection of their discussions. That said, the two Costco executives both pleaded guilty to professional misconduct before the Ontario College of Pharmacists.
I think that the tape is the only reason why Costco decided to plead guilty on January 15th at the hearing. And the tape, you can't debate the tape. I didn't ask him, I didn't set him up. He told me how to pay him. So Costco's story is in that tape.
Costco claims Gagliese used the tapes as leverage to get his business back after Costco dropped his products. As for Amir Adaran, he considers Gagliese a hero.
I think he's behaved in a selfless and heroic way. He has shed light on one of the murkier sides of the pharmaceutical business. Costco has been caught with its hand in the till, clearly. Now the big question is, what will the province do about it?
That's what Gagliese wanted to know too. He took his tapes to the Ontario government, specifically the executive officer who oversees Ontario's drug system.
So Tony, you've gone to Costco, you've gone to the College of Pharmacists, you end up here with the province. What brought you here?
So I kept hounding the executive officer, inspector, to get back to me. And then suddenly, in October of 2017, I get an email from the Forensic Investigative Team, or FIT, asking me to come to a meeting. And I thought, who are these guys?
FIT, the Ontario government's forensic investigation team, specializes in cases involving wrongdoing against the government. The team requested a meeting, and Gagliese began to feel like his whistleblowing work was finally paying off.
I went to a meeting with the Forensic Investigating Team, and they were the ones putting together the case for the Minister of Health. And what I was told, and I quote, "Help us, Tony, to put together the case against Costco."
I think the best hope is for some criminal prosecutions to occur.
Amir Adaran says legal prosecutions could stop industry kickbacks and help lower drug prices.
I'm a guy with a PhD in the biomedical sciences and a law degree. And Tony's a highly educated person too. And we have gone down the rabbit hole of how drugs are priced in Canada and come out horrified. Most people live lives not down that rabbit hole, and they're probably happier for it. But if you do go down there, you too will come out and be convinced that we're getting ripped off.
After years of selling drugs to pharmacies, we wanted Gagliese to meet some of the people struggling to pay those high prices.
Hi. I'd like you to meet Tony Gagliese.
Hi.
Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Like Brenda and Jim Poot, the man diagnosed with multiple brain tumors.
Why don't you give Tony an idea of just what your monthly bills are like and what you're paying for?
Well, we pay $437 a month for this extended benefits.
Right.
And over and above that, we're probably looking at, after that, an additional $2,000 plus a month in additional pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Given your elevated pharmaceutical costs, you and Brenda have made a recent decision to start buying your pharmaceuticals at a new place.
Yes.
You're going to Costco.
Exactly. Yeah. Any cost savings to us was some light at the end of the tunnel.
Gagliese told the Poots how rebates work, and if they were eliminated, how they could cut their drug costs big time.
They could, technically, the Minister of Health could just lower that $30 prescription to $12, and that's where Jim and Brenda would save a lot of money.
Yeah, so we could potentially see a 60% reduction in our, let's say, $30,000 that we're laying out, conceivably being $18,000 back to us.
Yes, if you're using
Those
generic
numbers,
drugs,
yeah.
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
That would go a long way towards making life a lot easier.
And a lot longer.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's incredible.
Perhaps even more incredible is that during the investigation by the Ontario College of Pharmacists, Costco claimed it wasn't alone. Other pharmacy chains in Ontario are demanding these rebates too. As you'll see from the materials that we put forward in the context of the investigation, this is not a Costco-specific issue. This is an industry-wide issue in terms of these payments. Ontario is the only province to make rebates illegal. So imagine the savings if all generic drug companies slash their prices by as much as 60% across the country instead of giving that money to pharmacies. Especially when you consider Canadians spent almost $6 billion on generic drugs in 2017.
And just recently there was a study that said 3 million Canadians struggle to fill their prescriptions. 2 million people don't even bother because they can't afford it.
But you're speaking to some of those people. I make that conscious choice between paying bills and saying, can I do without that drug this month?
Yeah.
And we do that. We have to do that. It's just a matter of economics.
A potential saving that could be passed on to people like you.
Yeah.
But right now that money is going for those corporate profits.
For the corporate, we call profits, I call it greed. And disgusting greed. Like, that's obscene.
I think that this is a business where the various players have carved a piece of the pie for themselves, And none of them want to really upset the system because that pie sure is tasty. This is a business in which different stakeholders have big financial reasons not to upset the way things are done.
This may not work for the consumer, but it's certainly working for the corporations.
It's working for the drug companies. It's working for the pharmacists.
We asked for an interview with Costco's CEO, Craig Jelinek, or their top executive in Canada, Andre Briand. Both declined. But in a statement, Costco argues rebates actually benefit consumers. We have not used these funds to line our pockets while we continue to charge high fees. To the contrary, payments received are used to defray our operating costs to allow us to pass the savings on to our customers, to the tune, Costco says, of $16.4 million in 2014 alone. Costco continues to grow its operations in Canada, with 98 stores and counting, like this budding new store in Toronto. Part of a worldwide success story that saw the retailer post profits last year of almost $3 billion. For the Costco pharmacists Lawrence Varga and Joseph Hanna, it's business as usual. Both continue to act as senior executives at Costco. But after blowing the whistle on Costco and losing their multi-million-dollar account, Galeesi is now out of a job. And he hasn't been able to find work in his industry since. He considers it the price he paid for going public.